Class, let's talk on lactation and mammary gland. Let's start first with the mammary gland structure. So, mammary glands are composed of lobes, 15 to 20 lobes. Here's would be a lobe. Each lobe is made up of smaller structures called lobules, which are within the lobe. Okay, within the lobule are alveoli. Glandular alveoli, not the alveoli in the lungs, but glandular that secrete milk in lactation. So milk would flow from the alveoli to the secondary tubules to mammary ducts to lactiferous ducts to the lactiferous sinus, which expands, and that's what is going to hold the milk. So within a lobule, you have the alveoli. Then a secondary tubule would come, secondary tubules. Then the secondary tubules would lead to lactiferous ducts. Then the lactiferous ducts would expand into a lactiferous sinus, and that's where the milk would be stored until the suckling response occurred. Epithelial cells lining the tubules and alveoli secrete water and nutrients. This would make the milk. There are also myoepithelial cells. They squeeze down to eject the milk. Okay. So mammary gland changes in pregnancy. Mammary glands become secretory during early pregnancy due to estrogen and progesterone and prolactin. Okay. Prolactin is secreted from the anterior pituitary. Okay, it's being controlled by prolactin inhibiting factor in the hypothalamus. But anyway, following parturition, the secretion of milk required those mentioned reproductive hormones combined with cortisol, thyroxine, and insulin. Progesterone stimulates alveolar growth, and estradiol stimulates tubule and duct growth. So the estrogen and progesterone. Prolactin secretion is controlled by, as I mentioned, prolactin inhibiting factor from the hypothalamus, which basically is dopamine. The secretion of prolactin inhibiting factor is inhibited by estrogen. So PIF is inhibited by estrogen, primarily estriol. PIF is inhibited. Now let's think about this. Prolactin inhibiting factor would decrease the production and secretion of prolactin. So if you had something that decreased this, then prolactin can increase. Thus, when estrogen is high, prolactin secretion from the anterior pituitary increases because it's inhibiting the inhibitor. But though prolactin increases, the estrogen and progesterone during pregnancy inhibits its action to stimulate the glands. So in other words, the prolactin is being secreted, but it can't work because it cannot stimulate the glands to produce milk, which basically means that even though the prolactin is there, it's not working at this time. Okay, let's go further. When the placenta after birth is delivered during parturition delivery, the source of the high levels of estrogen and progesterone are gone. The afterbirth was the source, the placenta. Its removal, prolactin, causes prolactin to be able to work on the mammary glands and thus produce milk. So once the afterbirth is gone, the estrogen and progesterone, particularly by that being gone, will allow the prolactin to work to produce milk. Okay, if a woman does not want to breastfeed, a drug, bromocriptine, also called Parladel, binds to dopamine receptors, promoting the action of PIF. Thus, the drug is a dopamine agonist. It works just like dopamine, and remember, dopamine was prolactin inhibiting factor. So here's a diagram of all of this we talked about that you can look at. So nursing maintains high level of prolactin via neuroendocrine reflex, the suckling response. Nursing also stimulates oxytocin. So here we go. Prolactin makes milk, Oxytocin causes its letdown. Prolactin makes milk. Oxytocin causes constriction of the mild epithelial cell. Stimulates the lacteous duct for milk flow to initiate milk ejection. Okay. Thus, prolactin stimulates milk production, but oxytocin gives the letdown by stimulating the squeeze, shall I say, in the lactiferous ducts. Okay, let's go a little further. Milk letdown can be controlled by conditional responses, the simple cry of the baby. So in other words, there are other inputs into this action in the brain area, so the simple cry of the baby can cause a letdown. Anxiety can activate the sympathetic and it can inhibit. So the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, inhibits this letdown. Okay. All right. Here's some things you can look at there. Milk production, oxytocin, prolactin, breastfeeding and immunity. Antibodies are in breast milk. You can study this. Antibodies in breast milk, IgG and IgA. So breastfeeding is good from the antibody aspect. These provide a passive immunity. Remember we talked about passive and active immunity before in the immune section for the first 3 to 12 months of life until the baby can develop its own antibodies. So that's the benefit. That's why women that use the Similac with iron, the various things, don't get the good protection that breastfeeding does. Okay. It also promotes development of the baby's own immune system. Colostrum is called that first milk, and it has lots of antibodies. The first milk really produced. Okay. Here you're looking at the chart of the antibodies, and you can look at that there and review back in your immune to assist. Natural contraception. When you breastfeed, it inhibits gonadotrophin releasing hormone, which inhibits gonadotrophins, FSH and LH, and ovulation. Okay. If a woman does not want to breastfeed, she could take Parladel, bromocriptine. She could tightly bind the breast because stimulation of the breast will cause, even with this, it will cause stimulation. So tightly bind and apply ice, that's the usual, and have no breast stimulation. So this gives an idea. I'll come over here and see if it's anything. Colostrum, rich in vitamin A, protein, minerals, IgA, is released the first 2 to 3 days. That's that first milk. Is followed by true milk production. So that first milk that's produced in the female after you drop that estrogen and progesterone level, that's awesome. Here again, we talked about this. And breast milk, fats and iron are better absorbed. Breast milk, its amino acids metabolized more efficiently than those of cow's milk. Beneficial chemical suppressant, immunoglobulins, lysozyme, interleukin. Okay, and it also, meconium is the feces in the newborn that's been born. Okay. All right, this should give you an idea. Of course, you always have to study this in my course, but this should give you an idea of how this all works. Okay.